So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to our GMAT seminar. I am so excited that you've decided to join this seminar and learn more about what resources to use. Many of you mentioned, I need a good study plan, I need to find some time, I need good resources, or sometimes I just need to get started. And that's what we often need to do in the GMAT. Because when we are starting to study for the GMAT, it's easy to be overwhelmed. So what we're going to hope to do today over the next hour or so is share with you some of the tips on how you can approach GMAT questions. We're hoping to unpack the GMAT so that you know actually what is it that you're getting yourself into. I hope that we all have the right expectations that we can't really ace the GMAT in an hour, but at least what we can achieve is to know where to go there, to know what strategies to use, what resources to use, how we can structure our studies. And you'll also hear a lot of the MBA admissions tips. So let's get started. I'd like to encourage you to grab a pen and paper and take some notes, because if you just simply participate, if you listen passively and if you don't participate, you'll be staying in what we call the comfort zone. And that's what you normally do if you're watching your favorite show of Netflix. But when we're in the comfort zone, we don't really learn and we don't really grow. So try some of these exercises we're going to give you today. We will explain all of them step by step, so not to worry. Just try it out. Nobody's going to see. And you can share anything you'd like with me in the chat box. The way we've done this today is that I will see all of your comments that you put in the chat box, but nobody else will see them. So if you don't see other people's comments, it's okay. We just want you to be safe. In our regular classes where we have a little fewer people and everybody's on a webcam, then you'll be able to share and hear other people. But just for today, just so you feel safe, please feel free to share. So what I wanted to do is give you a question. Oh, perhaps show you a typical GMAT question. So here's a typical question. I'll give you a few seconds to read it and try to make sense of what's going on here. It's one of the real GMAT questions that appeared on past exams. Okay, so what do you think, ladies and gentlemen, about this question? Easier to understand, super clear? Can anybody actually write the answer? There actually is an answer to this question. There definitely is an answer. Or perhaps, would you like to see the answer choices? The GMAT's a multiple choice exam, so what if I show you the answer choices? Would that help? Let me know in the chat box, please, if anybody wants to see the answer choice. Okay, oh yeah, I see a few yes, please. Okay, here are the answer choices. So please let me know in the chat box whether you think the answer choices help. What do you think? Yeah, the answer choice help? Okay, perfect. Yes, so what's the answer then? Can anybody please tell me what's the answer? Oh, see, the thing is that when many people approach this question, they certainly initially feel a little overwhelmed with the amount of information. And it'd be really nice to see numbers in the answer choices, but we see these variables. So that's a fairly typical GMAT question. And the way it's asked, the way that the question is created, the way it's structured is fairly typical. Obviously, there's a very large variety of different questions that the GMAT might ask you, but what you see is quite typical. So how do most people approach these questions? They're going to do something like this. They'll say, okay, I remember some math that I've done a long time ago, and I remember that distance is equal to rate times time. So the question is asking me how many miles, which means it's asking me for the distance, but I need the speed and the time. The problem is I have two different speeds and only one time. So I can try to build some equations, maybe from home and back home. Maybe I need to recognize also that the times together are t, the distances are the same. I can build a few equations. And, if you are really good in math, after about 2 to 3 minutes, you possibly will have an answer. Most people, I've seen many people, after about 5 minutes, they just say, okay, you know what? Give up. That's obviously a hard question, not very easy to deal with. So maybe I'll try my luck in another question, right? So that's fairly typical. And that's how we've done questions before. But is that what you would want to do on the GMAT? Maybe not. Let me show you a different way of approaching the question. The way that we show, that we call the mastery way, we also like to call it the thinking like a CEO way, right? More of a higher level. Let's take a look at this question from a more conceptual perspective. And let's try to understand what's going on there. Well, I know that distance is equal to rate times time. And that's actually pretty obvious, right? I mean, most of us, by the time we're thinking about the business school, have a driver's license, and most of us know how to drive a car. So I know that if I'm driving at 100 kilometers an hour and it takes me 3 hours, I know the distance is 300. Right? I mean, it's just common sense. It wouldn't occur to me to do anything else, right? So that means if I need to find the distance, I simply take my speed, multiply by my time. What would you think, though, if I were to suggest that maybe we should just add speed and time? What do you think? Is that a good idea? Just add speed and time. So I have 100 kilometers an hour. I have 3 hours. I add them up, and there I go. I have 103. What do you think? Please let me know in chat box. Is that a good idea to add speed and time? Not a good idea, right? Not a good idea. So if it's not a good idea in real life, could it be a good idea on the GMAT? Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, exactly. Somebody was mentioning they measure different things, so we can't really add them. Let's take a look at some answer choices. Answer choice B is trying to add speed x and time t. I mean, wait a second. We can't really add these two things. I mean, how can I add speed x and time t? That's impossible. That's just common sense. So I guess B can't be the right answer. Are there any other answer choices that try to add speed and time? Well, yes, maybe D. X plus Y plus T, that's two speeds plus time. That doesn't really work that way. And even E, Y plus T, speed Y plus time T, no, we can't really do that. This is just not how things work in real life, right? Certainly not on the GMAT as well. So I guess at this point, I've been able to eliminate 3 answer choices, and I'm just down to 2. So once I'm down to 2 answer choices, how many of them could be correct? Only one, right? I mean, either A is correct or C is correct. There's no other option. Everything else is gone. So at this point, what I could do is I can just look at either one of them, and I can decide which one I like the most, and just test whether it's the right answer. And you know what? At this point, looks like A would be an easier answer to test. I don't really care whether A is right or wrong. All I care is what's going to be easier for me to understand. So if I look at A, I would notice A gives me X over Y, which is the ratio of 2 speeds, basically miles an hour divided by miles an hour. And then I would go ahead and multiply this by T, which is time. So if I take a ratio of 2 speeds and then multiply by T, I would get hours. I would get the time. But the question was asking me for miles. So A is not the right answer. And you know what? At this point, the only answer that's left is C. I don't even care why it's the right answer. I've already found the right answer. This is a multiple choice exam. I can move on. I don't need to double check. I have only 2 minutes per question on the test. And being comfortable with a lot of these more conceptual ways to think, with the process elimination, with some of the shortcut math strategies, with some of the conceptual math, with some of the mental math is going to be really important. And literally, this is a hard question. Very few people get this question right. And certainly even fewer people get this question right fast. And yet we were able to do this question literally in 30 seconds. If we simply recognize that to find the distance, all we need to do is multiply rate by time. Make sense? Okay, so we've seen the problem-solving question. Let's look at the critical reasoning question, right? Another, and again, just to recap, what we'll be doing today is I'll show you a couple of questions. We'll actually do 3 different questions today. One from quantitative reasoning, one from verbal reasoning, and one from the data insight section. So there's 3 sections on the GMAT. Tell you a little bit about the structure of the test. We'll talk about the resources, how to prepare for the test. And then we will hear from Jeff Koons, who just joined. So welcome, Jeff. You've actually been here for a few minutes. So thanks so much for joining. Jeff is going to share with you strategies of how to prepare the Smith MBA application. And this is the application that could be applicable to any business school. But certainly Smith, being one of the most competitive business schools, uses a very rigorous process. So Jeff is going to share with you some of the tips, and I would encourage you to really stay until the end and make very good notes. Today is a very short seminar, only an hour. So we're going to try to pack as much as possible is it within this 1 hour. Okay, so this was the question from the quantitative reasoning section. That's a third of the exam, these types of questions. Let's take a look at another type of a question from the verbal reasoning section, another third of the exam. I'm going to get you to, again, read this passage. I'll give you about 30 seconds to try to understand what's going on here. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So again, you have a passage and you have a question. Now, no numbers. This is not math. This is now what's called verbal reasoning. The question is giving us a series of statements, essentially a short passage. A part of this passage is bolded, and the question is asking us that part in bold plays which of the following roles. Well, if you've never seen these questions before, then that's totally understandable. These questions are fairly specific to standardized tests, most specifically to the GMAT. So I'm going to ask you whether you know the answer yet. All I want to ask you for now is, how many times did you read this passage? Please let me know in the chat box. Do you read it once, 2 times, 3 times? Just let me know, please. Okay, 3 times. So far, everybody I see read it 2, 3, sometimes 4 times, 1% 5 times. Okay, once taking notes. Okay, that's good. 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. Okay, so most people read it anywhere from 2 to 5 times. And please let me know, on a scale of 0 to 100, how much of this passage do you feel you understand in order to answer this question? So 0 means I don't understand anything what's going on here. This is all foreign language. And 100 means I understand everything. Basically, it's all super crystal clear. Okay, so most people 60, 60, 70, 90%. Okay, that's good. That's perfect. So now let me show you the answer choices. Now that we've read this a few times, now that we understand it well, the question is that statement in bold plays what role? So here are the 5 options. I will actually launch a very quick poll. So we see a pop-up on your screen in just a few seconds, and I will ask you to share what you think is the right answer. And then we'll talk about this question. Thanks so much for answering. Please keep these answers coming. I'm going to give you another 20 seconds to choose an answer if you haven't already. All right, let me go ahead and end the poll. And actually, let me actually share the results with you so that you could see that we got votes for pretty much every answer choice. Most people for A, B, C, D, and E, so everybody got a vote. That's amazing. Now, obviously, only one of these answers could be correct. So that's very interesting. Most of us read this a few times and understood it really well. And yet, seems like many of us didn't get the answer correct. Let's see what might have happened here. So let's go back to the passage. The passage is basically the passage by an ethicist. I don't know if you ever met a person by the profession of ethicist. Essentially, it's probably a professor working at the university who studies ethics and maybe teaches ethics, maybe writes some books about ethics, right? So let me ask you, how much do you need to know about ethics if you're trying to get into a business school? What do you think? Do you have to be an expert in ethics? Yeah, somebody's saying a what? Somebody's saying no. Yes, no. So we have some people saying yes, some people saying, well, you know what? I think that you have to be ethical to get into a business school. I hope you agree. But do you have to be an expert in ethics? Absolutely not. In fact, was it important for us to understand exactly what this person is saying? Not really. The question wasn't about that. The question was the statement, which is in the middle, the statement in bold, plays what role? Not what it's saying. What role does it play? So I don't really need to understand what the person is saying. I just need to understand how this person is saying it, right? How is this person structuring this argument, the ethicist? And if I want to focus on the structure of an argument, I actually need to pay attention to very different things. Many people, when they read this, they'll try to really understand what does it mean to be especially virtuous. But it's not that important. What is important is to recognize that the ethicist began the argument by saying somebody is wrong and I'm right. Now, you don't just go around telling people they're wrong without backing up our opinion. So we need to actually explain why. The fact that we claim something that we disagree with, so these people are wrong, is what we call a conclusion of an argument or a claim of an argument, or a main opinion or a main point. This is what came first. But then we also need some support, also known as evidence or premise, and that is what the bolded part was all about. So what we found is that we basically started by saying somebody's wrong, I'm right, and here's why. So that part in bold is here's why. Now, there are many different ways to use here's why. I could use an example or a counter example. I can make an analogy. I can bring in an expert who's going to say why I'm right. So what is the author doing here? Well, the author is essentially saying, look, we can agree on this one part, but people probably misunderstood what that means. They probably misinterpreted. So I disagree with them, even though I agree with this little part. Okay, so what have we just learned from this analysis? Essentially, we've learned that there's the part that the author agrees with, that the author is using to support the main point. Let's see if this is going to help us answer the question. So traditionally, the most commonly picked answer here in this question is actually C. So I'd like to start with C. C says it is a faulty claim. Interesting. What was a faulty claim? There was some faulty claim, but it wasn't the part in bold. The author said, although this is true. So C is definitely not the correct answer. How about D? It is according to the argument a commonly held opinion that is nevertheless false. Again, wait a second. The author said, for although this is true, and the question was about just this part. Is it false? No, it's not. The author said it's true. So D is also out. E, it reports an observation that the argument claims is false. Oh, I can stop reading. No, the argument said it is true. So E is also out. Just like in the previous question, we're down to 2 answer choices. It won't always happen, but it happens quite often. So now we have 2 answer choices left. And just like before, I can just pick any one of them and see if it's right. And if it's not right, then it has to be the other one. Just like before, I'm going to pick the one that's shorter, A. A says, it is a claim for which the argument attempts to provide justification. So that means that that part in bold was the main claim, also known as the conclusion or the main point. Is that true? No, it's not true. The main claim was these people are wrong and the ethicist is right. So A is not the right answer. I guess it has to be B. You know what? Honestly, whatever B says at this point doesn't matter. That's the only answer choice that's left. Sometimes you won't even be able to understand the correct answer. As long as you can find 4 wrong answers, you're done. And as you could see, this is a lot about logic. Even math is a lot about logic. People think that math reasoning or quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning are very, very different. They're actually not. They both test very similar skills, just some questions contain math and some questions don't. And from the new data insight section on the GMAT Focus Edition, there'll be some questions that contain math and some don't within the same section. So looking at these 2 questions, you might actually ask a very valid question, and that is, what will help me get a good score? Now, what will help me get a score that's amazing, that will make the business school want to really accept me and maybe even give me like an entrance award, that would help the recruiters who come on campus to want to interview me versus somebody who just barely makes it or maybe doesn't make it at all. So what really separates these people? And here is a quote from the organization that makes the test. It's called the Graduate Management Admission Council. It's the organization that actually creates all these questions and administers the test. So here's what they say. And this is actually, ladies and gentlemen, this is very important. Honestly, if this is like the only thing that you're going to get from the first half of this seminar, it's probably going to be that. And that is the GMAT is not a traditional test. A traditional test is evaluating how well you know something. So let's just be honest. Traditional tests evaluate your memory. They test how well you have a knowledge of a certain subject matter. But the GMAT doesn't evaluate how well you know business or ethics, or somebody jogging from home. Instead, it's evaluating what's called higher order reasoning skills. Essentially, it's evaluating how you think. You need to have some basic knowledge of basic math, some fundamental English rules, like you need to know the difference between the evidence and the conclusion, or the formula for the distance. But beyond that, it's really all about thinking critically and demonstrating these critical thinking skills. And that's exactly what business schools are looking for, because if you think about whom business schools are looking for, they're not looking for necessarily people who are very book smart. They're looking for future leaders. And these are people who can solve problems, look at the problems from different perspectives, think critically, and arrive at the answer. And hopefully make the world a better place and, hopefully make a lot of money in the meantime. So let's be honest, all of us are going to business school because we want to make a lot of money. And the only way to make a lot of money is to bring a lot of value to the society. That's the only way. And we do this by solving complex problems. So to solve these problems, knowledge isn't enough. And I love analogies. So I'm going to give you an analogy of learning how to, let's say, play a new sport. Let's say you want to learn how to swim. Would it be enough to just simply have a knowledge of how to swim? Not really. What we need is to develop a skill. And that's why the GMAT is commonly known as a skills-based test. And just to give you an idea of how it's a skills-based test and not a knowledge-based test, let me show you my score report. And I'm showing this to you not to impress you. I mean, honestly, it impresses me. I was able, I was a fairly new immigrant to this country. I came from a different country. I was educated in a different language. I was able to achieve an 93rd percentile on the verbal, 97th percentile on quant, 99th percentile overall. Took me a grand total of 2 weeks to get that score. So you might be wondering, okay, well, yeah, Sergey is a genius. Yeah, I really appreciate you think that way, but it's actually not true. The reason why I was able to succeed on the GMAT so quickly is that I already had the skills. There wasn't too much I needed to know for the GMAT. Everything I needed to know, I could learn within a very short period of time. But to develop the skills for the test, to be able to think a certain way, to be able to reason through the questions, see and notice some patterns in the question, that's what, for me, took me a very long time. But I've done that before I even knew what's the GMAT. And if you've heard of people, sometimes you go on YouTube and these people are saying, wow, I got a score of 716, a week. And if you do the same what I did, then you can get the same score. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way, but there's still a shortcut to studying for the GMAT. So for me, one of the reasons why I was able to do so well is just, it's very simple. I just had really amazing teachers. This was one of the best teachers I've ever had in my life. He was my math teacher. He was already retired when I was in school. That was back in the 80s and 90s of the 20th century. Unfortunately, he just recently passed away at the age of 95. And this gentleman was just so gifted, was the best teacher I've ever had. Right? So sometimes people come to me after the class and say, wow, this is the best class I've ever taken, or you're the best teacher I've ever had. And I said, look, I just had the good teachers. That's it. I wasn't born like this. So that's why now I'm doing what I'm doing, which is basically teaching the GMAT. I've been doing this for about 15 years. I'm officially retired from the corporate world. I used to work in the corporate world for a while, but I decided that this is so much more fun. And I'm doing this to not just keep my brain engaged, but I'm meeting so many amazing people. So here's and by the way, the reason why I'm telling this to you is even through beginning to study for the test, you can meet all these amazing people. Like here's Daria. She was in one of our classes during COVID. So it has to be done online. Now we have some classes in person, some online. They're pretty much the same. The technology is now amazing, of course. And they're a lot more interactive than this class because now you can see me, but I can't see you. In a real class, we can both see each other and you can see other people, both in person and online. But one thing I really liked here about Daria is she basically came and said, look, she was very humble. She said, look, I want to do my master's. I am very ambitious, but I'm not doing well on the GMAT. I need some help. What should I do? And she said, I'm not really that good in math, but I want to do Master of Financial Analytics. But I feel like it's not about that sort of math. And absolutely, that's exactly what happened. You will see here from her comments. You could, if you never heard of Admit Master, you can Google us and read lots of comments online. And I love what many of our clients say is they say, I really learned how to think differently. There are benefits to studying for the GMAT outside of just learning the formulas. And the main benefit is you learned how to think differently. You learned how to manage time and stress. Yesterday, I was actually meeting with one of my clients whom I worked with about 7 or 8 years ago. He's the CEO of a fairly large company, a private company, multi-million-dollar company. And I was just talking to him a little bit about the GMAT. And I was asking him, what do you feel like? You've been working for 20 years, you've been an executive, and you had to study for the test. It's like, Sergey, this was like one of the best things I've done before my MBA. He said the MBA was the best thing I've done in my career, but studying for the test, it was one of the best things I've done before that because it helped me prepare for the MBA and also helped me meet a lot of great people. I was just recently just scrolling through my LinkedIn, and I noticed one of our clients that was in our class about 10 years ago just became a CEO of Staples Canada. And I wrote her a note, and she responded to me within like an hour. And I looked at some of our common friends, and they are all the people who've been in class with her. I mean, how else can you meet these people? Right? So this is a great opportunity for you to begin networking. And certainly when Jeff comes in, he's going to talk a lot about the program as well and some of the amazing opportunities you have in the MBA program too. So I'm very excited about the GMAT. I hope you're getting excited too. Many people think about the test and they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I really have to do this," but it actually could be very exciting. So let me tell you a little bit more about the test and most importantly, how you study for the test. So far, today we talked about problem questions. And by the way, we do offer longer classes. Some of them are free. We also have full programs where we can train you. And I'll talk about this a little bit later. But if you'd like to know a little bit more today, we just have an hour. We have longer seminars. So if you go on our website, adminmaster.com, you can see what are these seminars. They're usually 2 hours long. And we cover different types of questions. I will show you one more question today. But one thing also important that I wanted to mention to you is that the way the GMAT is structured, it's essentially a 2.5 hour long exam that is trying to assess whether you're ready for the business school. So how can they do this in 2.5 hours? Well, they do this by giving you challenges that change in difficulty. So they give you some easy questions. You deal with them well, they give you harder questions. And then you do those well, and then they give you even harder questions, right? That's basically how things work. That's how in 2.5 hours, they're able to do this so quickly and accurately. And the new GMAT Focus Edition is actually a shorter version of the older test. The older test was 4 hours long, then it came down to about 3.5 hours. Now the test is 2 hours, 15 minutes, but its accuracy is still very high because the GMAT just perfected the way to test these skills. And now the test has 3 sections, and all of these 3 sections are really about thinking critically. All of these 3 sections are also adaptive, and all of these 3 sections contribute towards the total score. They're now a lot less about knowing English grammar and knowing English formulas or math formulas. They are now a lot more about really demonstrating, can you think on a different level? And I'll show you one more question in just a moment. If you're curious, if you've studied for the older version of the test in the past, there's some really good comparisons on MBA.com. There's score concordance tables where basically you can see what would the old score of, let's say, 700 be in the new scale. And that's how the business schools are looking at this right now. Essentially, when you're looking at the score, the most important score, actually, ladies and gentlemen, is not even the raw score, it's the percentile score. Essentially, if you get a score of 645, you're in the top 11%. If you get a score of 705, you're in the top 1% of everybody who does the test. So if you're in the top 1% of all MBA candidates, would you think the business school will think you're a good candidate if you're in the top 1%? So doing well on the GMAT is one of the easiest ways to put your application on the top of the pile. Of course, there are other things that you could do to improve your application. You can talk about your work experience, you can ace the resume, the video interview, the in-person interview, and Jeff's gonna talk about this in a moment. I promised I'm going to show you one more question from the data insight section. So let me do this, and then I'll talk about the resources, and we'll give some time to Jeff to share the tips. So here is a typical question from this new section called Data Insights. These questions were borrowed from the old test as well. They've just been restructured, and now they're part of the new test, of the new section on the test. So here is what the question is saying. At a certain closing store, customers who buy 2 shirts pay the regular price for the first shirt and a discounted price for the second shirt. The store makes the same profit from the sale of its 2 shirts than makes from the sale of 1 shirt at the regular price. For a customer who buys 2 shirts, what's the discounted price of the second shirt? Wow, that's a question. But see, the answer choices don't contain numbers because the question itself doesn't give us enough information to answer the question. We had no dollar values there whatsoever. And yet the question is asking us, what was the discounted price? So instead, what this question is doing, it gives us some additional data, and it's asking us, which of these pieces of data would be necessary in order to answer this question? So I'll give you about 45 seconds or so to vote for what you think is the correct answer. And essentially, now that we've seen the question, what piece of information do you think we're going to need in order to answer this question? You have two pieces of information there, statement one and statement two. So depending on what information you think you need, you will respectively choose one of these answer choices. So let me give you about 45 seconds to work on this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me actually go ahead and finish the poll here. And let me show you what we voted for. So most people believe we need two pieces of information. We need to know regular price and we need the cost, right? Okay, so how do you actually make sense of this question? This is a question from the official guide. So it's a question that appeared in one of the past exams. And I don't know if you know, but the official guides at the back of the book have explanations. And I was just doing a tutoring session earlier today before this seminar, and somebody was trying to understand these explanations. I'm like, let's just stop. Let's not do that, because it's going to take us a long time to try to understand this official explanation, and it doesn't really mean that we're going to be able to do that on a real test. It's not about knowing the formula. It's about really learning how to get to the answer quickly. And sometimes I have a master of math. Sometimes I read these explanations. I'm like, really? I don't even understand what they're saying. So instead, again, let's apply our conceptual thinking here. And this is a very good question to demonstrate to you what does it mean to think like a CEO. You know, we talk here a lot at Admit Master about, well, what do you think like a CEO? What does it mean? You know, you think on a higher level. Well, let me just think like a CEO for a second. Let's imagine I'm a CEO of this clothing store. Let me know, please, in the chat box, whether you love buying things on discount. Or let me know maybe also in the chat box if you like to buy things at the regular price. You know, anybody likes to buy things at the regular price? You walk into a store and like, yeah, you know, everything is regular price, no discounts. That's my day. Exactly. Oh, we all want discounts. And that's a part of marketing. I'm sure that you will learn this in the business school, but it's all common sense. And that's why when you walk into a mall, almost every store will have some sort of a discount at some point. Unless you Louis Vuitton and you don't need the discount, right? People who need the discount, you don't want them in their store, right? So something like that. But for most of us, we want the discount. So as a CEO, I'm going to just say, let's make a discount, but I don't want to lose the money. So here's what I'm going to do. You could walk into a store and buy one shirt. And in that case, we're going to make a certain amount of money. And that's great, but chances of you buying that shirt the regular price are not very high. You want a discount, so we're going to create this BOGO discount. Basically, buy one, get one at a discount. We'll sell you the second shirt at a cheaper price. And the way we're going to do this is basically we're just going to sell it to you at cost. We're not going to make any money on the second shirt. So we're going to make all of our profit on the first shirt, right? That's exactly what the passage was saying. So the store makes the same profit from the sale of two shirts that makes on sale of one shirt at the regular price. So that means the second shirt, no profit. Right? You happy? You bought something on sale. We're happy. We actually made the same profit. You probably would have maybe not even bought one shirt, but now you definitely did buy this first shirt. We made all the profit. Second shirt, whatever. Yeah, we're just gonna break even. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is because we're making no money on the second shirt, essentially the price of that shirt, the discounted price of that shirt, is going to have to be equal to whatever it costs us. Now, we pay $50 to the factory, we're going to just list it at $50. We don't care about making any money. So now, let's see which information is enough. Statement 1, it gives us the regular price. I mean, that's nice to know, but the question wasn't asking me what's the regular price. It was asking me what's the discounted price. And I guess maybe I need to know the amount of the discount. That'd be nice. But they didn't give me the amount of the discount. So certainly statement 1 by itself is not sufficient. Statement 2, however, gives me the cost of the shirt to the store. And you know what? That's actually all we need. Because the question was asking me what's the discounted price. And now I know the discounted price is $12. I don't know the regular price, but why do I care? The question was never asking me for what's the regular price. It was just asking me what's the discounted price, and I already found that, and that's $12. And that's why the answer to this question is actually B, surprisingly. So that's what we call thinking like a CEO, right? And in data insights, you're going to have to work with large amounts of data. There are other questions as well. Sometimes questions have different parts. Sometimes they have graphs and tables and charts. Of course, it will take some time to learn how to do these questions. But what's important is not just to learn the formulas. What's important is to also get ready mentally for the test. It's a challenging test. I mean, you already know that this, first of all, it's an adaptive test. It tries to break your limits. It tries to make questions harder and harder for you. And secondly, it's a competitive test. You're competing against other people. Your score depends on everybody else's score in the past 5 years. So how well you do, that percentile score, you're actually going to be compared with everybody who did the test in the past 5 years. And for everybody who did the old test, all their scores were recalculated with the new algorithm. So yeah, there's still a 5-year history, even for the new test, for the GMAT focus. So that will require, of course, some practice. And I'll talk about the steps in just a moment. But I wanted to show you this, what I find very inspirational. This is the lady who came to us a little bit on the higher end of her work experience. She's already worked for almost 10 years. And said, look, if I don't do the MBA right now, I'll probably never going to do it. I said, well, tell me, why haven't you done MBA so far? And she said, you know what? I've been trying to study for this freaking test for the past 4 to 5 years, and it just wasn't working. That I developed so much anxiety about this test because I tried things and it just didn't work. And eventually said, I'm almost ready to give up. And this is my last hope. She's like, you're my last hope. I feel like Luke Skywalker from the Star Wars, but sure, let's see what we can do. And at that point, it was during the pandemic. We have actually a trainer who comes and trains us here at McMaster as your instructors on how we can teach very efficiently. And I've gone through this training for many, many years. That's why many people say this is a very enjoyable class, but it's a part of training. It's a part of also me teaching thousands and thousands of classes. So we said, okay, let's sit down, and we even brought in this person, this trainer who has a degree in psychology. She said, what can we do for the Rini, because she developed so much anxiety? And we were able to give her some ways to keep track of her progress, give her assignments. Everybody who comes to our class, it's a fairly small class, 10 to 15 people, everybody gets a personalized study plan. We do the same things in class. We have a lot of fun. But then what you do at home and how do you practice and how do you measure your progress, that's different for different people. And as a result, Darini was able to get a score of 700 in just 3 months. And she was finally able to do her MBA even earlier than she thought. She thought she would need at least a year, but she was able to do it a lot quicker. So that building that confidence is actually very, very important. And I wanted to show you just before I talk very briefly about the 3 steps to studying for the test. I wanted to show you what's called the sales funnel for the GMAT exam. As you probably know, if you ever worked in marketing or in sales, there's such thing as a funnel, which essentially there's a certain number of people that will hear about your product, then there's a certain number of people that will do some research, certain number of people that maybe try it, and then even a smaller number of people that will buy it eventually. So this is a funnel for the GMAT or for MBA programs. When I saw these numbers, I was honestly quite shocked. But this all statistics from the people who make the test. So about 10 million people a year are thinking of doing an MBA or a master's degree worldwide. 10 million people. So they're just thinking, okay, it'd be nice to do an MBA. Wouldn't be nice to do masters. What do I need to do? Here's the GMAT exam. And then about a fifth of these people, so about 2 million people, will say, okay, well, what do I need to study for the test? So they'll try. Now they'll try a few questions. They maybe try a practice test. And then how many people do you think out of these 2 million that try will actually do the real test? I was shocked when I saw this number. It's actually just over 5%. So what about the other 95% of people? Well, life got in the way, or maybe the test is not for me. Maybe I need to do something different. And Darini was almost in that 95%. Until we started working really towards that plan. And of everybody who does the test, not everybody's going to do well. So if you look at how many people want to do an MBA and how many people get a score that's good enough to get them into their dream business school, the old score of 700, and also guarantee that the GMAT is not going to be a factor when they go and recruit at these consulting firms and investment banks, the chance is like 1 in 600. It's a pretty small chance. So how can you make sure that you actually get a good score? Well, here's what you can do, ladies and gentlemen. What I'd like to suggest is, as a very, very first step, you came here to the seminar, and that's amazing. Really honor you for spending the time. We'll talk about connecting with the school. That's also going to be very important. But the next step would really be take a practice test. When I took my first practice test, it was an eye-opener. I was able to see what score do I get, what do I need to work on, what are some of the weaknesses that I still have. And I was then able to work on these weaknesses, improve my score. And that's how within 2 weeks, it wasn't just 2 weeks of waiting. It was 2 weeks of specifically working on the things that I knew I have to work on and reviewing things and practicing more. And that's how I was able to get a 750, top 1% in just 2 weeks. But it all started from me taking a practice test. And because the GMAT is not a test of what you know, it's a test of how you think, you can totally just go ahead and take a practice test right now. I'll give you a link to take a practice test in just a few moments. And then beyond that, you're just going to have to put in some effort in studying for the test. And please take everything you see online with a big pinch of salt. If anybody promises to you online that you can get a score of 730 very easily, I know there's one company that does that. They advertise that the average score of people who read their book or go through their self-study program is 730. That's just impossible. It statistically can't really work. But what I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is that through studying for the test with the right structure, learning the right strategies, having the right support, both from people who maybe can teach you the GMAT and from people who can be around you, your friends, you definitely can get a very good score. Most importantly, you will start developing the new skills for the test and the new skills for the MBA program. And you'll feel so much more comfortable in the MBA program. I mentioned my friend who was the CEO of a large company I met yesterday. He was actually telling me, look, Sergey, if I didn't study for the test, I wouldn't survive the MBA program. He ended up actually getting a waiver from the GMAT, and he still decided to do the GMAT because he said, I got to get ready. So how do you structure your studies? The final thing I want to talk about. Structure your studies as if you were to learn a new sport. The GMAT is like a sport. It's like a mental game. If you've never played any sports, that's okay. You can think of this as learning how to drive a car. So what's the first step when you want to learn how to drive a car? The first step is you got to know the rules. That's why most of us pass the written test first. So what are the rules? How do you add two fractions? How do you convert from fraction to a decimal? What's a claim and what's an evidence? That is something that you're going to do even before you come to the class, if you were to join our classes. We'll give you some things to work on. So don't worry. You don't have to look for anything outside of what we're going to give you. Step 2, if you want to learn how to drive a car, is get in a car. But you may remember that when you got in the car, you didn't just ask your mom and dad for the keys. Usually there was like somebody who knows how to drive, who can tell you what to do and who can keep you safe. That's very, very important. Because every time we try to do something new that we've never done before, what's the chance we're going to make mistakes? 100%, right? So that's why it's very important that when you're learning new strategies, that's why many people give up on the test and don't really succeed, because they try things and they don't work. And then they just say, oh, this doesn't work, or maybe I'm not made for this test. But they haven't learned the strategies. Now, if I go and try to catch some fish in the ocean, but if I don't know how to do it, I'm not going to catch any fish. And I'm going to be there for 3 days. I'm like, this doesn't work. There's no fish in the ocean. And then I see another gentleman who's like catching all the fish. And it's the same ocean, it's the same fish, but this gentleman is experienced and knows what he's doing, or she. So that's why it's very important that you learn these best strategies up front before making too many mistakes. That's what we did when we learned how to drive a car, and then make sure you get some feedback. And ideally have somebody who can also motivate you a little bit. Because to get to feel like this gentleman feels, driving a mountain road with 100% confidence, you need to practice a lot. And you may have heard practice makes perfect. It's actually not true. If we practice something that doesn't work, we're not going to be perfect. We're going to be perfect only when we practice something that works. Right? Practice makes a habit. So think about what habits you're going to develop, ladies and gentlemen, because these are the habits you're going to carry not just to the GMAT exam, but also to your business school and also to your workplace. Why do you think CEOs make so much more money than a lot of other people? It's because they have the right skill set. They're able to think differently, they're able to make decisions, they're able to manage their time very well. And that's what you can begin learning even while you're studying for the test. And if you want to make it fun, one of the things you could do is you can join our Admin Master GMAT Mastery Coaching Program. So we have a program that's fairly unique. It's different from many other courses. It's not just a course. It's more like a prep program, like a full support. We call it the all-inclusive coaching program. Essentially, you're going to come to us. We'll give you all the resources, all the materials. You'll be in a class, an actual live class for 6 weeks or 12 weeks if you want to be in a slightly more relaxed schedule. So once a week it's 12 weeks, twice a week if it's 6 weeks. We'll give you all the books, all the study materials, mock exams, and we'll keep supporting you. You know, just today I was doing a tutoring session with one student. We did office hours. We have some amazing instructors. And I've been teaching for 15 years. Honestly, I'm one of the least experienced people here at McMaster. One of our instructors has been teaching since 1997. Another instructor wrote a bunch of books about the GMAT. So I learned from these people, and you can learn from them as well. Our program is quite affordable for what you're getting. You can go on adminmaster.com/offer and see what's available. We have a next class that's starting this Saturday, and there's still some discounts available. There's also a class that starts at the end of this month. The most important thing with this program is we're on your side. We'll be coaching you. I love this work. So I love working with people, and I love for you to succeed. I love for you to be a next CEO of a huge company 10 years from now, and for other people in class to be friends with you. So we're trying to create this very, very supportive learning environment. You can take our class in person in Toronto or live anywhere else in the world. We have people from Africa who join us, people from Asia, people from Latin America who join us live virtually, and you'll participate in the same class. There are some self-study options as well. You can look at them online. You can see some samples. I will send you an email with all of these resources. And we do keep track of success of our students. On average, our students get an 80th percentile score, and about a third of our students will get scores in the top 10%. And I think that's just incredible, because we've just learned that statistically, the chance of getting the score in the top 10% is 1 in 600. And yet among our students is 1 in 3. We like to say that our students are the best in the world. We like to also think that we're playing a small part by just making it so much more fun and making it manageable. When many students will say, look, what I really love about your course is you break things down into smaller steps that I can understand. And now it all makes sense to me. So I guess the only thing that's left, ladies and gentlemen, is your commitment. I've personally worked with well over 10,000 people who prepared for the test. And I've seen people who nobody believed in them, including themselves, and yet they were able to achieve amazing scores because they were committed. And there were also people who thought that they're just naturally very smart, but they didn't want to do the work, and they struggled, at least initially. So if the MBA is really important for you, commit to these skills. You can come and join our classes. There are some other free seminars you can join. Take a practice test. Just go to smith.trygmat.com. You can find all of that at admitmaster.com/offer. And if you'd like to chat one-on-one, I'm actually going to launch a quick poll. I'm the kind of person who says, look, um, let's take the first step. Let's at least chat. I'd love to meet you. And whether you come and join our class, maybe our class is for you and maybe it's not, but at least I'd love to talk, learn a little bit more about you and see how I can help. I love helping people. That would make me happy. And Jeff is the same way. That's why I'm actually so excited to have Jeff here today. Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much again for joining. Sorry I didn't leave you too much time.
That's okay. Hi,
But
Sergey. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can hear you really well. I know you have a lot of really valuable tips. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and stop the share. Do you have some slides, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got some slides that can be shared. I'm just going to click on my second screen here and start my
Perfect.
presentation. I hope everyone in the Admit Master audience can see my full-time MBA at Smith School of Business at Queen's University slide.
Yeah.
I just want to say that this is a very brief presentation of a larger presentation that I would normally give. So if you're interested in the full version of this, please go to our website. It'll be at the end of the slide deck, and you can attend a more in-depth session in the future. And I'll also give you the chance to connect with one of our application advisors to help you with all aspects of your application, including the GMAT. And first, I'd like to endorse Sergey. I've had the pleasure of knowing Sergey for about 10 years. Many Smith MBA students have raved about Admit Master and Sergey's tutelage in preparation for the test. I thoroughly endorse everything he's spoken about over the last hour. So encourage you to consider that as you move forward with your next steps. So once again, my name is Jeff Coons. I am the Associate Director of the Full-Time MBA program at Smith School of Business at Queen's University. I am based in Kingston, Ontario, about 2 hours and change east of Toronto, where Sergey is located day to day. There's my email address on the screen. So if there's anything that is not covered in this very brief session with you tonight, feel free to reach out to me and I'll respond to you quickly through email. Some good news for the full-time MBA program at Smith School of Business. Back in February, we were the recipient of some amazing news. For those of you that have followed the Financial Times Global MBA ranking, the full-time MBA program at Smith School of Business ranked #1 in Canada. We were delighted with that outcome, obviously. Number 62 in the world, but also #1 in several categories in Canada. Career services. I imagine that most of you that are listening tonight are looking at a post-MBA career, and having that great career coach is going to help you get to that destination. #1 for alumni network. You're trying to build that tremendous network during your MBA and beyond. And we have a saying on campus, Smith helps Smith, Queens helps Queens. And we see it and hear it over and over again that alumni bears a lot of fruit for our students during their MBA year and beyond. And finally, best value for money. We acknowledge that this is a significant investment of time, energy, and money undertaking an MBA anywhere. However, I'm also wanting to say that our program is less expensive than our major competitors in the Canadian marketplace. So we're delighted to be able to be #1 in ROI. So that's a great slide and hopefully entices you to take the next step to apply to our program. So a lot of you are in the top end of your experience thinking about, what goes into a impressive application process. And Sergey's touched on some of this tonight, and I'll dive a bit deeper now. Cover letter and resume. Speaking on behalf of people that read cover letters and resumes for a living, you don't have to regurgitate your resume in your cover letter. 3 paragraphs is sufficient. Briefly introduce yourself. Who are you? Why are you applying to an MBA? That could be a good introduction paragraph. Second paragraph, why are you looking at the Smith program specifically? Maybe some of the program details that catch your eye, and how does that relate to what you'd like to do during the program and a career outcome, which transitions into the third paragraph. Talk a bit about the career that you're targeting post MBA. What industries, what companies, have you connected with anyone within that network, and why that's important to you? Tie all that together nicely in a succinct 3-paragraph cover letter would be great. Updating your resume, talking a bit about your professional and academic achievements on one document would be delightful, and your application advisor can help you with that. Academic background, we do need to see your official transcripts from your undergraduate degree. They can be sent directly to your application advisor. And again, I'll speak about the app advisor role in a second slide in a moment. Work experience, 2 years is our minimum for the program. The average year over year is about 4.5 or 5. 9 is a soft ceiling. So again, work experience brings a lot to the table in terms of the discussions you have in the team rooms, the classroom, your club activity, your networking. That really accentuates who you are as a young professional, and sets you forward towards a positive outcome in a career search. 2 professional references. In a perfect world, we'd love to hear from your boss, someone that can speak to your effectiveness on the job as a young professional. Talk a bit about perhaps you're working with clients, perhaps you're working on major projects, someone that can speak to your effectiveness on a team. A second professional reference could be a colleague of work. It could be a customer or a client, perhaps someone that you work with on a not-for-profit volunteer organization in the community. Obviously, these people are going to say great things about you. The GMAT score, Sergey's talked a lot about this in the hour. It is an important part of your application to the Smith full-time MBA program. I had a question in the chat from a participant a moment ago about what our minimum score is. We don't have one technically. We do have scores in the 700 range. The meaty part of the curve year over year is 650, 660. 600 is a good target floor score. However, I'm reluctant to give you that as a hard decision, because we definitely do take a holistic approach at every applicant's file that goes forward to the admissions committee for consideration. But hopefully that answers your question and focuses your intention going forward. Something else I'd like to say about the GMAT, and I've been with the program now for about 10 years with the full-time MBA, and seen some impressive students move forward into highly competitive careers like management consulting, the highest levels of finance, investment banking, etc. A GMAT score can be a part of the filter for a post-MBA career. So it's definitely in your benefit to have a GMAT as a part of your personal profile going forward. You can, in some cases, receive a GMAT waiver for purposes of admission to the program. However, if you are targeting these highly competitive careers, it's definitely in your benefit to have it. A second reason to have a GMAT score in your profile is it's a part of our scholarship rubric. We have a robust merit-based scholarship program at Smith School of Business. We do not have an unlimited one. About 70% of our applicants receive some form of merit-based scholarship as a part of their application. So if you have a higher score, in combination with these other items that you have as a part of your profile, the undertaking of the GMAT test, the few $100s that you could spend on writing the test, perhaps investing in a prep course like Sergey's program here with Admit Master, could benefit you not only in the career side, but for several thousands of dollars to assist with a scholarship to augment your program fees. Finally, we got rid of the written essay. We went to a video question format through an online service called Kira. We have 2 video questions. You can't study for them. They're quite common sense or situational questions. You can't study for them. It's about 15 minutes of your time instead of about several hours or days to write a long essay. Once all of these items are in hand, you're invited to a personal interview. You can do it either live on campus in Kingston or a Zoom interview with members of the admissions committee. Once all of these items are in hand, your file is sent to the committee, and you're guaranteed an answer on your completed file within 2 weeks. So again, we move quite quickly. It is a rolling admissions basis. We don't put our applications on a shelf for some magical day in June or September when decisions are made. We know that you have busy lives and you'd like to be able to transition that to the MBA program in January effectively with all of this information in front of you. I've mentioned a few times the application advisors. I am going to pump their tires here. We are the best at what we do with the front end of the experience. The application advisor experience that we have at Smith School of Business is second to none, the best. And I've heard this direct from the students that work with them. Terry Lynn and Rachel are experts in the full-time MBA program. They know the ins and outs of a successful application. And as Sergey has said a few times, they are also on your side. They will help you provide a preliminary assessment of what they see in your application. They will guide you through every step of the process, and they will help you present a strong case to the admissions committee. So, a couple of final comments before I sign off for the evening. There's our website, smithqueens.com/MBA. We are one of the few programs that I'm aware of that does not have an application fee. So it doesn't cost you a dollar to apply to our program. We do not take any money from you at all until you enroll in the program experience. So that's something to keep in mind. As I mentioned, rolling admissions basis and the social media in which we follow on our webpage there. So check us out through a lot of different ways that you can reach us. I mentioned the email address at the beginning. If you'd like to attend a future, more extensive webinar, we will definitely be doing them in the weeks and months ahead. So keep an eye on that website to be able to sign up for future events. And for those of you that are attending MBA tour events domestically here in Canada or perhaps in locations around the world, have a look for the Smith School of Business and Queen's University table. We'll be at these fairs. And of course, Sergey goes to a lot of them as well. So I'll stop sharing now, and thank you very much for your attention on this particular topic. Great to collaborate with you, Sergey.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Jeff. Thanks so much for joining. And for everyone else, people like Jeff and I, we are here to help. People like Caroline and Rachel, we are here to help. So please reach out. The most important thing when you're applying to the business school is to make the right decision. Is this the right fit? Is it going to help you get to your career goals?
I agree wholeheartedly, Sergey. You have to be a fit for the program, and the program has to be the fit for you. We are a one-year program starting in January. There are programs out there that are 16 or 18 months or 24 months. There's live versions, there's online versions, there's video conference versions, programs with internships and co-ops. There's so many different choices out there. This is the second largest investment that you will make in your life, undertaking an MBA program, second only to purchasing a home. So you wouldn't buy that home without walking through it first. You wouldn't buy a car without driving it around a little bit. I encourage each and every person that's listening to this webinar to fully research the programs that are in the marketplace and why they are a good fit for you, or perhaps why they aren't. I encourage you to talk to current students, talk to alumni, to staff, career coaches, faculty in some cases. There's lots of different resources out there. There's lots of information on YouTube. I can't stress that enough. Making an informed choice is critical to your successful outcome.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks so much for sharing this. I love how you used an analogy of the second biggest purchase. I might even add to this that it might be the second biggest purchase in terms of the amount of money you're going to invest, but it might actually be the first most important purchase, because if you don't like your house, you can always sell it.
That's right.
But if you don't like your MBA, you can't really sell it.
And an MBA will stick with you for life. It is a reputational accreditation, especially with our program. I hear this over and over again, that Smith MBAs, that Queen's alumni are found across Canada and around the world in multiple industries. And I've truly heard that when they see that Queen's pin or that Queen's piece of swag on a luggage tag on someone's briefcase or suitcase, they're often connected by that connection to the university and the program. And hopefully there's someone listening tonight that might want to take that step and apply. Thank you for applying early as well. It is April the 3rd. Lots of time to take on an Admit Master prep course for the GMAT, to be able to do a successful test through the summer, and probably have a possible outcome that benefits you in the long run. I just want to say one final comment about the GMAT, and I do see the importance of it. However, there are a lot of applicants out there that will wait until the GMAT is in hand before they apply. They use that as the single lone indicator as to whether or not they should apply to a program. Please do not do that. Especially in a program like ours, there's no application fee, there's no obligation, there's no hard sell tactics from our program at all. You can get through your cover letter, resume, transcripts, your Kira video and questions. You can have those things done. Your references can be completed. And then you can tell Rachel or Terry Lynn that you're writing the GMAT on June the 1st. They'll leave you alone until then and help you get all of the other pieces done. And that GMAT could be the cherry on top to everything else that you're trying to submit. So again, a little piece of advice from behind the screen at the admissions committee. Please do not wait to apply until after the standardized test is done.
Jeff, what would be the best? Thanks so much for sharing this. What would be the best way to get in touch? Would it be to send an email to Carolyn or Rachel? Would it be to fill out a form on the website for
Yes, I
for the
believe
assessment?
your webmaster dropped the website into the chat as well. So if the listeners could click on that and just go right to the apply now or introduce yourself button on the Smith MBA website, a staff member will reach out to you within one business day. You can fill out the online application form. You'll be immediately assigned to either Terry Lynn or Rachel, and they will guide you through every steps of the way. For instance, if you went, let's say you went to Queen's University and your official transcripts get sent right to the admissions committee, they'll note that and say, okay, great, we're still waiting for your 2 references. Please let me know when you've scheduled your GMAT. We're looking for an interview date for you in the future. Perhaps we can set that. They'll coach you through every step of the way so you're not alone. That's one of the big things that I've heard from students consistently over the years is that Smith School of Business treats you like a human being. What a concept. You're not treated like a number. You're not treated like some nameless, faceless person. This is a relationship that we're building with you right from these early moments, right through the 12-month experience and into your tenure as an alumni.
And if you allow me to add a couple of quick comments, we hear a lot from our clients. Many of them went on to do a Smith MBA. We hear a lot that the experience of not just applying to the program and working with the application advisor, but also the experience of getting career coaching and support all throughout the program. Because the MBA isn't just about learning how to read financial statements. It's about deciding what you really want to do in life and building that plan. So I just heard some really amazing comments about the Career Center at the Smith School of Business. And we just consistently hear about the amazing alumni network and about the amazing Career Center. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for that. And I just saw a question in the chat about a low GPA and how can they offset that? Well, tonight's session's a great way to offset that. If you have a low GPA in your undergrad, you could take a prep course like Admit Master session, and that GMAT can help offset the low GPA that you would have had in your undergrad. Especially the older applicants that might be out there, maybe 28, 29, 30. That's certainly not old for me, but older for the full-time MBA student audience. Perhaps it's been 5 or 6 years since you've been in school. Those GPA marks from your undergrad are less timely. A GMAT can be a little bit more authentic in terms of who you are right now at this stage in life. And again, we take a holistic approach. We consider each part of your application equally. So again, I don't want you to be hypnotized by a specific number or a specific score that you think you might opt in or out based on what you've achieved there. Talk to Terry Lynn or Rachel. They are your coach. They are your guide. They can be that lens into what they see in the full scope of your application.
A couple more questions here. As well, Jeff. What are the ranges for the scholarships? What is the highest it can go to? Good
It's a
question.
popular question. So I mentioned about 70% of our students receive some form of merit-based scholarship, which means 30% do not receive a scholarship. They certainly can join the program, but they will pay the full amount. Low end, $5,000 to $10,000, moderate, 15 to 25, higher end, 30, 40, 50, 60,000. We have some very generous donors that have given us some merit-based named scholarships, and that is the full scope of the application file can be considered for the highest levels of scholarship remuneration for their student fees. And you also receive scholarship at the same time you receive admittance to the program.
And would international students qualify for scholarships as well?
Yes, absolutely. And if there's international students listening to this, and welcome to Canada. We are delighted to have international students as a part of our experience. I'm happy to report in the full-time MBA at Smith School of Business, current class, 80 students. So a smaller classroom in comparison to some of the other competitors out there. You're not going to be anonymous. You are going to know the other 79 people by name, and they are going to be a supportive part of your network. We have 20 different countries represented in our program this year out of that 80 students, which is so amazing. I'm always amazed at the cultural diversity that we have in our program. And 38 different academic backgrounds by undergraduate degrees. So again, diversity is a big part of who we are. However, and I'm not putting down our federal government, I know that there are countries in which it will take longer for the study permit to get approved. So if you are thinking about January 2025 and you are an international student and you are on the other side of the world, I strongly recommend to apply early. We have a Labor Day, September 1st deadline for international applications. And again, Terry Lynn and Rachel can give you some guidance as to how much time you would need to succeed successfully and navigate some of those immigration hurdles.
There's also something that many of you may have heard if you're international and you're considering applying to Canada, is that the regulations for international students have been tightened quite a lot recently. So there are many different avenues to come to Canada, for example, to learn language and to come to different community colleges. A lot of these avenues are now being closed down. So the master's program, such as the Smith MBA, could be a lot more straightforward way to actually make your way to Canada and to gain Canadian work experience and ultimately gain a Canadian citizenship.
Yeah. Other questions in the chat, preferred age range. I mentioned that in one of the earlier slides. 2-year minimum, 5-year average, perhaps 7 or 8 or 9 on a soft ceiling. When we get into the mid to late 30s range, you're starting to look at executive MBAs, a little bit more of an older demographic and less in the 20-something range that most full-time MBA students are. But 2 years is our minimum. The other question, and if you are waived from the GMAT, does that impact scholarships in any way? What are the conditions for waivers? Again, a full scope of your application file. So if you have a first master's, if you've written the LSAT or the MCAT, if you've written the CFA full exam and some of these accreditations that can benefit you. If you are not pursuing a career in consulting or high levels of finance, if you're looking to stay with your current company and they're promoting you with an MBA accreditation in hand, they could probably care less what your GMAT score is. Sorry, Sergey. But for purposes of admission, that's the way that you could get waived. And of course, we take it on a case-by-case basis through the aid of your application advisor for that. And it's decided at the admissions committee meeting. Let's see, I think there's a final question here. I signed in late. Can I reach out with questions once I saw the video? I'll speak for Sergey. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you if you have any Admit Master related questions. And my website was dropped into the chat as well, so feel free to reach out to me. My name is Jeff with a G. .Koons@queensu.ca is my email address.
Would it be okay to share your email address with everybody here by email? We'll be sending a follow-up email tomorrow to everyone.
Sure,
and we can certainly
absolutely.
include the link to the pre-assessment as well as your contact information as well.
Sure.
And
And
please connect with us on LinkedIn as well.
yeah, I'll drop it into the chat right now for those that are wanting it immediately. There it is.
Perfect. Somebody was asking, Jeff, are the interviews with professors?
No,
Who's doing the interviews?
great question. And no, it's not. It's done by members of the admissions committee. It's a one-on-one process. Myself, I do a lot of interviews. We've got colleagues at this full-time MBA that also do interviews. It's about half hour to 45 minutes of your time once Terry Lynn and Rachel schedule that with me or one of my colleagues. Um, it's not a very difficult process. I try to keep it rather low key and conversational. I'm not a bad cop, so to speak. I want to see a little bit of personality and creativity and why you're undertaking this journey as a part of your life. Have a bit of fun with it. Get a good night's sleep the night before. Tell me about yourself and some of those questions that you normally get answered. I've already teased some of those questions here tonight. Why are you doing an MBA? Why specifically the Smith program? What industries are you choosing? Why is that important to you? Can you collaborate effectively on a team and tell a story there? Tell me a bit about, a time of resilience in your life when things didn't go so well, and how did you overcome that? These are questions that you would probably hear in a lot of programs, but certainly a part of ours. And yeah, just have a bit of fun with it.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I don't see any more questions. You'll have our contact information. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you from my own experience, I've done my MBA 20 years ago. It was life-changing. I've been very fortunate to work with thousands of people for whom this was a life-changing experience, and can certainly be a life-changing experience for you. Think about what you really want to do, talk to the people who can help you in this journey, and make sure that you don't give up on your dreams.
Hear, hear, I agree.
Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.
Bye for now.
All the best. Awesome. Thank you. And please look for an email with the recording, as well as our contact information and some resources tomorrow. And please reach out if you would like to chat at any point in time.